Hi folks, I just want to share with you the issue concerning Zionism and Israel and Palestine, and my thoughts about that. I think that the Bible clear has a plan for Israel, and Israel has a right to the land where she is. And I do believe that God was in the restoration of Israel. I really do, in modern times. I don't agree with the way Israel has treated the Palestinians socially, economically, but at the same time I think that the Palestinians, the way they have trained themselves in this sort of hatred of Israel, to me is almost bearing on Nazism, if not Nazism. You wouldn't want a little Germany of Hitler's time implanted next to Israel. That would be crazy. But that's what Palestine's become. It's become anti-Semitic to the point that if they had a nuclear bomb, they would wipe out Israel. So I don't think it's wise to empower Palestine to be a country, because all you're going to do is bring a third world war, because the Palestinians, as soon as they get the weaponry, will blow the living daylights out of the Jews. And that's the other thing I want to say, is that there's growing anti-Semitism in the West that is growing, and I think I find it very disturbing that this anti-Semitism is around, and it's growing, and it's getting stronger and stronger, and I just can't understand why people hate Jewish people. So what I want to say is, what I believe is, I believe that the Jewish people are God's people. They were chosen by God. They were given that land by God. Nobody should have taken the land from them in the first place centuries ago. That the Muslims who were there after the Jews did not have a right to that land ultimately. It was the Jewish people's land. And Palestine has the Muslim will behind it. And I think that ultimately the Palestinians should move to Jordan or move to a surrounding country and be assimilated there. That's what I think should happen. We had a guy go really get angry at us the other day in Manchester street preaching, because some guy, I didn't know him, who had a Jewish flag on his back, and it really upset this guy who was pro-Palestinian. But I don't think we should get bitter and twisted either way. And this sense of victim, that Palestinians are victims, well, the Palestinians have the backing of the Muslim world, so they have an immense power, and and they're trained to annihilate Israel. The young kids are trained to annihilate Israel. So I don't have the same sympathy as the guy who was angry at someone in town the other day who had a Jewish flag round his back. I understand that there be injustices done, but there be injustices done on both sides, and there has to be a seeking of reconciliation. But there can be no reconciliation with a group of people who want to annihilate you off the planet. And the Palestinians do want to annihilate everybody off, the Jewish people off the planet. I've seen videos of young kids being trained by Hezbollah and these Islamic groups to completely annihilate Israel. So all I can see that there's going to be wars all around Israel until the Muslim world accepts that Israel is there to stay. But I think also that it's wrong to, as a Christian, I think, to stir animosity up, in the sense that, you know, when we're preaching in Manchester, I don't want to be seeing Christians with Jewish flags around their back, because that puts Muslims off. And I think you have to be wise. But I do think that I have noticed a bit of anti-Semitism around these days, and I just hope it doesn't become epidemic. Those are my thoughts. Thank you. But I do sympathise with Palestinian socially. If they're being economically deprived in some way, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with their suppression in that way. But I don't agree with empowering a state that has an ideology of wiping another nation off the planet. That to me is Nazism. If the Palestinians were to grant autonomy to Israel and agree that that was the case, and was willing to live in peace with Israel, categorically live in peace, then I would say, well, if the Palestinians want to be empowered to be a free state, then, even though I still think some of that land is Israel's land, I would say give them that chance. But they don't want peace, they want to annihilate Israel.